Okay, so now that we've had some time to decompress and eat, and we're still in the car trying to warm up, Chris and I just took Chris to see Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan here at the Artcraft. And again, this is his very first Star Trek ever. I mean, he's seen me like watching it, but it's kind of, hey, what's that? Star Trek. Okay, keeps on walking. So the first time I sat down and paid attention to it, came in fresh, really knowing nothing about Star Trek whatsoever, which is cool because the first time I saw anything Star Trek was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That's the first time I ever heard anything Star Trek, and that's when I was like 7. You know, when I saw it in the theater. So this is really cool. So, did you like the movie?
Yeah.
What was your overall impression?
I really like it.
You really liked it?
Yeah.
Hey, you seemed really into it. I wasn't sure how well he'd take to it, but I mean, he literally at some points he was on the edge of his seat. Now it was because uncomfortable, he couldn't see, but he was especially during the intense battle sequences. He was really up there, and he was laughing along with the jokes, and he was into it. What did you like the most about it?
Probably just like the CGI, the entire the Enterprise.
Okay, first of all, there was no CGI.
I don't know why I said CGI. I don't know why.
Actually, there was a little bit of CGI in the whole the Genesis sequence when they're showing that, when Kirk was watching that. That's like one of the earliest forms of CGI in film, of using computer graphics, was that whole Genesis. But everything else, the Enterprise, those are all models.
Yeah.
Shot, with all practical effects in camera, done by ILM. But yeah, but those shots were really good.
Shots are good, yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was upset because he went to the bathroom during when Enterprise was actually leaving dry dock, so he missed some of the beauty shots of Enterprise, which it's okay.
It's fine.
But he caught a lot of stuff in the Mutara Nebula and all that. We did see this on 35mm, which is cool because it's always great to see on actual film.
Yeah.
However, the problem with that, this was like an older print, so it was spliced a bit, so it cut out. There were some scenes, some lines. Again, I knew these were coming up, and they would be spliced and cut. So I told him we'll have to go back and watch it at home, so you can see the whole thing. But
4K too.
Yeah, we do have it in 4K.
4Ks.
So, what are your impressions? What do you think of this Kirk, Spock, and McCoy? That's the main three of Star Trek there.
I really did a character.
You like, okay. Maybe not Kirk.
All that writing is really good.
Okay. I mean, the character, not the character of Kirk himself. What did you? I'll put him on the spot.
Oh yeah, I have it just right out of reach. I really like his characters. More of a caring about his team, or something like that.
Well, he's a leader. That's his thing, yeah.
Caring about each single one of them.
The main thing, the themes of this movie, if you didn't get it, are basically life and death is the main thing of this, obviously, and the subject of getting older. Beginning of the movie, I'm really caught on this, but it's obviously Kirk's birthday. Yeah. And then I believe it's like his 50th birthday, so he's hitting middle age. He's becoming in a midlife crisis. And again, this is stuff that was over my head when I first saw it because I was 7. I don't know what this means. It's going at myself about to turn 49 this year. I get it. It really resonates with me on a whole other level. The point where Kirk, he was a young guy. He was always a captain of Enterprise. He was brash. He's, adventurous. But now he's older. He's behind a desk. He's the admiral. He's no longer flying the ships. He's no longer adventurous. He feels like his life's winding down, and he's having a hard time dealing with that. It's that whole idea of you have more years behind you than you do ahead of you. So that's kind of sitting with him. That's what he's so melancholy and sad. Again, these are the things as you reach a certain age that, myself, I really resonate with. And it's I think you look at it in a whole different light. And of course, the whole Genesis itself is a metaphor for life and death. Like, like McCoy said, it's generally, we can, what is it? According to myth, God created, the world in 6 days. Look out, here comes Genesis. We'll do it for you in 6 minutes. You can do both at the same time, create and destroy. And of course, you have the whole theme of the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario, dealing with that, and obviously the sacrifices you have to make and dealing with those. Okay, speaking of that, the big thing about this, which was huge when it came out, was the death of Spock. Now, myself, again, going the first time, I had no idea what the significance of Spock was in that relationship, but I know when I saw it, it was very sad. So it resonated with me, even though I knew nothing. Which is great about Star Trek too. You know, it's that anybody can watch it. You don't really have to be a Star Trek fan to understand what's going on in Star Trek 2. It really resonates to everybody. That's why it was so good. So, how did you feel about that ending?
I felt a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
Honestly, I knew about Spock, but honestly didn't know much about his character.
Mm-hmm. You just know the name Spock.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah. If anybody knows anything about Star Trek, it's usually Enterprise and Spock. Those two things, maybe a Klingon. But other than that, that's the things you know about Star Trek. So, but it did get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was tearing up a bit. I've seen this movie a billion times. I can recite it line for line. But it gets me. So how did you feel about Khan? Ricardo Montalban on his chest, hamming it up.
I love his dialogue.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Ricardo Montalban. He's got such a great voice, and when he delivers his lines is just so smooth, and he's considered probably the greatest Star Trek villain of all 50, 60 some years of Star Trek. He is like the top villain. And like I said before, this is actually a sequel to an episode of the original series called Spacey, where you first meet Khan, which takes place 15 years, actually aired like 15 years prior to Star Trek 2, so the time is right there. But it's, to give you backstory on Khan, you can't really understand it, and he's supposed to be in the future of 1996, the far future of 1996. He was part of it. There was a eugenics war, basically, in the history where basically there's people who were augmented to become superior beings, and he was a genetic Superman, and he ended up, reigning, and he was exiled eventually. I think they were the cause of World War III, and he was exiled into space, and then, 200 years later in the 23rd century, the Enterprise finds him floating in cryosleep and wakes him up, and Khan ends up trying to take over the ship, like Chekhov said. And the end episode, Kirk puts him on SETI Alpha 5, and and always talks about, know what happens to him, in the future, see what happens. Of course, they never go back to him, but then they decided to revisit that in the movie. I think it's a good thing, because again, the problem what Star Trek 2 does is, in a sense, it's almost like a soft reboot, but not really. And I say that because the first movie, Star Trek Motion Picture, was a huge money-making, made all kinds of money, special effects, extravaganza. I still like the movie. Like I told you earlier, that movie wasn't really finished until last year when they put it on 4K to the director's edition and added a lot of visual effects to it, and got the vision that Robert Wise kind of really wanted. But even then, it was still much of what they call a cerebral movie. There's a lot of things, which Star Trek is basically, it's being science fiction. It's using the themes to explain a lot of stuff, and it makes you think, which is always Star Trek at its best. But people call it the motionless picture. So it was slow, it was boring. The dynamic of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy really wasn't there. So they, when they did Star Trek 2, they pulled a budget back, they kind of simplified it, and you really got that dynamic between those characters again, which is really good. That's really, helps the film, and really builds towards the end, because you're involved with the characters more, and you get that camaraderie. Like I said, you heard the audience; they were laughing with the jokes with Kirk and McCoy, and even Chris is laughing, and he was in it. So it's good, and it really helps build that towards the end. So, anything that sticks out in your mind that you really liked about it, or some part of it's like, oh, that's really cool?
No, not really. The entire movie was
just the entire movie. You're okay. So when you came in, did you really expect you were going to enjoy it as much as you did? Honest.
Maybe kind of not really. Kind of in between.
You just weren't sure about it because it's Star Trek, it's whatever. Some dad watches. I don't know. Some old dad watches. But I'm glad you really liked it, because I really felt like you were really into it. So I'm glad. So, like I said, this is part of what I consider the Genesis trilogy. It's the first part of that. There's Star Trek 3 and 4 kind of wrap this whole thing up. So after seeing this, would you be open to watching any more Star Trek in the future?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's start with me. Like I said, even then, all I watched the movies, because I couldn't never catch the TV show and reruns, even though it was on. But it was like really early Sunday mornings. I could never wake up that early to watch it. So I didn't really actually watch the show until as a whole, until it aired on the Sci-Fi Channel and like some special edition. I taped every one of them because they were hosted by William Shatner. But even then, I didn't really focus on it until I bought them on DVD, and could just cipher right through them. Like I said, there's a lot of Star Trek out there. There's like 7, 8 TV series. There's different aspects. You have the original series crew, which is these guys here. Then you've got the Next Generation crew. Then you have like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, the Enterprise show, which takes place before the original series crew. Now you've got Star Trek Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, a whole bunch of animated show of Star Trek Lower Decks. So much Star Trek out there. Plus you've got 13 movies if you count the Kelvinverse. And there actually was an animated series back in the 70s. So there's a lot of Star Trek. A lot of Star Trek. Countless books. Yeah, it's huge. But so you would be interested in going back and checking it out. So we'll probably have to go back and watch part 2 again.
Yeah.
So we can catch those lines that were cut and see it unspliced, and maybe we can even get a chance to watch Star Trek 3 and 4. Anyway, we're rambling. It's late. Chris is cold.
I'm not cold.
we're warming up now. Actually,
Yeah.
We got the heat running in the car. So overall, your final thoughts on the Wrath of Khan?
Great movie.
That's awesome. From a 13-year-old, again, if the movie that came out in 1982, and he's like saying it's great, that tells you the movie is timeless. It's why it's considered, the best Star Trek film out of all of them. That's it. So that's all you need to know. So that is it from now. So until next time, this is Chuck and
Chris.
And we will see you on the other side. Live long and prosper. Can you do it?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
Bye.